Okay, you know, I didn't really think about the projector thing. Projector. Yeah.
Sit there and worry about that. I have to do the same thing this week and next week. Well, 2 of them this week, 1 next week.
Yeah.
Hybrid.
It's not easy.
One of them in here. Here's that. Another one, all they have is AGA, so you know that one's in town.
Oh, no, that's
So
terrible.
they ordered it, protector, but
Oh, that's terrible.
I'm gonna take a speaker.
But it-
Switch it up.
We had,
Yeah. You need to test that.
Huh?
You're set up on this, but you ought to test this. What kind of cable are you doing?
Oh, it's a quarter inch to fire connector on the iPad. It's okay. I'm still not ready.
Not yet. Let's come that came through there like that. Testing. I said it's a test.
Came through and I did.
Now we're talking through the laptop. This is talking through the laptop.
Who said that? Who said they're talking through the laptop?
That's Mary Beth.
Mary Beth?
I'm gonna mute. I'm gonna mute you. Megan, could you say hello? Unmute yourself. Say hello, Megan. Test, test, test.
Hello, this is Megan. Test, test, test.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Absolutely.
We're so glad you're here.
So am I. I love talking about
You
spiders.
have jars of spiders with you?
I actually, I have some eggs that are going to be hatching, but nothing big right now. It's not really the season.
Cool. Can't wait.
I do have some black widow egg sacs.
Oh,
though.
wow. I was just pulling your leg. I was teasing
no.
you. Very good.
I really have stuff usually.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yep.
Okay. Brent's here. We can't pick on Brent. Brent. Would you like
Yeah, but it's that way. It's been like Debbie. Is Debbie still here? She's but she doesn't have a. Yeah, no, I. And then you, not here. On a laptop. Oh, Christ.
I don't know. You can put me here. I don't mind.
Okay. There we go.
You got it.
I think so. Oh, yeah, here we are.
Oh, there I am. Okay.
Not too great.
January.
Three minutes. Yeah, that's okay. That's because when when it was over this way, it wasn't, I was happened. That's okay. I won't be up here that long, I hope. Yes, questions or anything, yeah. 2 minutes. Where? Again. Megan?
Okay, there's start for it. It's like very purple. I did it. I just paid it.
You're going to introduce Megan, right?
Sure. Yes, you do.
Because I have to remember all of this stuff and the likelihood that I remember everything on my list. Yeah.
See, but Sharon, you have an excuse.
We may do it after the speaker, who knows? Where it says polls, Polls. Well, let's delete that other one. That other one needs to be deleted. Delete. It didn't delete. That's all right. All right, I've got polls here. I'm gonna add untitled question. Adopt. Well, I'm not finished yet. I tried, yeah. Adopt. Every computer is different. Delete. Adopt bylaws. Yes. No. But I want to delete the other poll. Okay, it didn't show up. It didn't show up. My new poll. Okay, so I deleted. So try deleting again. I could edit. Edit poll. Well, let's see, there's nothing there. Save before leave. All right. So that poll didn't save. All right, I'll start with something else. Good evening, everyone. Happy 2023 to y'all. And I'm usually loud and I'm hearing myself, so please forgive me if I'm too loud. We're working on setting up the poll to vote on the bylaws, which we have to do. And if all else fails, those of you that are here by Zoom, you can email me yes or no, and we'll count it that way. I know that's old-fashioned and crazy, but that's what it is. Thanks to everyone who's here in person. Thanks to those of you who are viewing by Zoom. And if by some chance the Cowboys are ahead, you can put it in the chat. And Frank will report to those of us who are here in person, but I am skeptical because it's the playoffs and well, I'll go ahead and give you a few announcements. We are still slowly, I know it's slowly, trying to implement a junior master naturalist program through our chapter. And Michelle Cyr, C-Y-R, and if I mispronounce your name, I'm just trying to help people spell it, C-Y-R. Michelle Cyr would like to have a meeting, Michelle, I forgot if it was before or after our February meeting. Before, I wrote it down, before our in-person February meeting. And if you are interested in continuing to try and implement that program, please call Michelle. I'm going to speak slowly, and Frank, maybe you could put it in the chat. Her phone number is 817-845-6747. Her email is michelle.sear. I'll spell that. MICHELLE dot Sear, CYR, at cooks, excuse me, I said that wrong, at cookchildrens.org. So if that's too much to remember, just send it to me, send the email to me. But I think Frank is going to get one or both of those contact information into the chat for those of you who are not here. Meghan Cassidy, excuse me, I know a lot of Michelles. Meghan Cassidy, I'm going to take as short a time as I can right now, and we'll probably vote after you give your presentation. But I do want to thank everybody. I want to thank you guys who signed my card during the holiday party last December. Thank you for any emails or phone calls or texts or whatever. I really appreciate it. I'm a teacher, so I want to explain everything, but I'm going to try not to. I'm 65, so Medicare pays for an EKG. Got an EKG in October. Had first EKG, only other EKG was 30 years ago. It's abnormal. And I don't mind telling you, I have a left bundle branch block, which means my left ventricle is getting the signal a little late. And some of you may have something similar. We do some tests, and as far as I know, the last test to find out what caused it was a heart catheterization on December 1st. And you know those little forms you sign because there could be a complication? Well, when I woke up 3 days later, I had a complication. And I can tell you that if you're gonna have a coronary artery dissection and your heart rhythm is going to go bananas and it's called a lethal arrhythmia, very similar to Damar Hamlin, although no one hit me in the chest. But if you're going to have that, you should either be an NFL player on Monday Night Football, or you should be lying on the table with your cardiologist standing over you, probably saying a lot of words that he wouldn't have said if I wasn't in that shape. I'm going to highly recommend him because I'm here. Timothy Hadden, Hadden. And I was out at Harris. I said I wasn't going to explain it all. I got care flighted after they stabilized me, I got care flighted to Harris downtown where the cardiac ICU is. They were all wonderful, even though I cursed out a couple of them. I mean, they were all wonderful. And what Dr. Hadden said to us a couple days later, after I woke up, he said, my heart healed itself. I have no stents. I was anemic. I can explain more, but that's not why you're here today. But I have no stents, and we still don't know what caused the left bundle branch block. And when Dr. Hadden said to my daughter and me, well, we could do another catheterization, it was like none of us were like, no. So I'm feeling much better because I'm following all the rules. That's mostly who I am. I'm taking every med. Taking my iron. I'm going to cardiac rehab to get my exercise. It's all really interesting and cool. And it was just amazing. So I am fortunate or blessed, or however you want to say it, to be here and be able to talk to you. So thank you. Thank you. Okay. Mary Beth is still working on the Zoom poll. Oh, wow. After we vote on whether to adopt these bylaws, Then we'll begin working on another document that the state has sent us called the Chapter Operating Handbook. And I just printed out one document at a time. So I just printed out the bylaws. We are looking for someone who's willing to take on the following activity for the chapter. And it has in the past been called the outreach director. I'm not sure what we're going to call it now. But I do get email, and I have done that, but we get emails from people like the stock show, and a week from, this Sunday coming up, they're going to have Kids Gone Wild, and would we like to have a booth? And I said, I've done that in the past. I'm just not ready to take on a whole day and 5,000 kids, with help. But we need someone who's willing to get that information from people who contact us and sign whatever the forms are and talk to the membership. We need volunteers. Yes, sir. The form is up. Okay. So if you're willing to take on some of that, or talk to me about it, talk to Sandy Thornburg, because she's worked with me a lot. And we'd like to have someone else who's willing to sort of be the face of the chapter to the public and do whatever kind of booth you want to do. If you want to do plants, that's great. We've been doing little caterpillars, importance of the monarchs, importance of pollinators for several years. So let me know. All right, Frank says that the Zoom poll is ready. So I don't know whether we need a motion to adopt the state bylaws, but I would feel better. Oh, meeting has been called to order. Got that, Glenda? Anyone want to move that we adopt the state bylaws?
Yes.
Mary Beth moves it. Any seconds? Second it. Thank you. All right. And remember, we're not a Texas Master Naturalist chapter if we vote no. All in favor of voting for, did you put yes, or what did you put, Mary Beth, on the Zoom poll? Okay, if you're in favor of adopting the new bylaws, vote yes. If you're present here in the room, please raise your hand. Thank you. All those opposed? Thank you. Are we collecting some data from Zoom? Okay. And there's 64 people participating. So I'm going to jump the gun and say the motion has passed and we have adopted the new bylaws and we're official and they take effect right now. All right. Mary Beth, would you come up and thank you all.
Good evening, everyone. We are so tickled to have Meghan Cassidy with us tonight. She, if you know Michael Smith, who taught the class for 2022 and is the author, is a local author who's written several books. Meghan has been his photographer. She's quite an accomplished photographer. And you saw her bio. She's a data analyst by day, and a nature lover by all the other times when she's not at work.
Yes.
Which makes me remember, I've been retired 2 years, but I always said that my work my work interfered with my life. So Meghan, you may identify with that. Meghan, we're going to hand this over to you and thank you so much. You can go ahead and share your screen.
Okay, great.
Do you want to have questions while you're
Let's
presenting?
hold the questions till the end. Just type them in the chat if you're on Zoom and hopefully remember them until the end if you could. Got quite a bit to go through. Let me get this shared real quick. Okay, are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes.
Fantastic. I mean, I'm doing something right. Okay.
That's fine.
So I'm here to talk to you guys about spiders. I've lived in Texas for about 12 years. I'm originally from Delaware. I've been a spider enthusiast for about 5 years now, and as much spare time as I have, I try to look for spiders and take pictures of them. I've been drawn to them since childhood. I remember watching orb weavers make webs, and my mom and I would go and catch moths and kind of just throw them in there to watch. Kind of cruel, but kind of cool. I do outreach and education walks and talks, night and day. The nighttime ones are definitely fun. And I actually collect and raise spiders occasionally. I've even shipped them across states to arachnologists around the country. And yeah, my day job is a data analyst, so I am not an official arachnologist or anything like that. I just really love them. So I'm going to talk to you guys more about them. My goals for this talk is to basically, bring an appreciation to these often misunderstood animals. I want to also show how diverse and awesome they really are, and maybe even convert some folks from spider killers to indifferent or maybe even spider lovers. And then also just kind of give you guys an idea of spiders that you may come across as you're exploring different areas around Texas. So this I want to start off with. I just kind of love this little poem here. She asked me to kill the spider. Instead, I get the most peaceful weapons I can find. I take a cup and a napkin. I catch the spider, put it outside, and allow it to walk away. If I am ever caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, just being alive and not bothering anyone, I hope I am greeted with the same kind of mercy. So that kind of resonates with me, and that's kind of how I feel about spiders. And this one's more just for fun. If you choose not to find the joy in spiders, you will have less joy in your life, but still the same amount of spiders. They're literally everywhere, all around us, pretty much all the time. So to get started, I'm just going to kind of give you an overview of arachnids in general, class Arachnida. The picture right here is actually a crab spider on some Liatris. There are 12 orders in class Arachnida. Those include harvestmen, spiders, scorpions, pseudoscorpions, ticks, and mites. So we're going to kind of go through those. And just to get started, I'm going to show you guys some basic anatomy of a spider. And we're going to kind of use that to compare it to the other arachnids. So right here, where number one is, well, first of all, this is a wolf spider. And I actually found this all the way down south in Brownsville. Number one there is actually pointing to the pedipalps. These are for sensory, and also with males, they use those for sexual reproduction. So with the males, the pedipalps will actually have what look to be little boxing gloves on the end. So they're enlarged. And the number two there is pointing to the cephalothorax, which is the head. That's where the eye and a lot of the organs are. And then there's the abdomen or body, which is number three. And as you can see here, spiders have two different body segments, and all of their legs are coming out of that first cephalothorax area. And then finally, number four over there are the spinnerets, and that is where the silk comes out of. So just to give you guys another example, here's a little Phidippus audax, or a bull jumping spider. These guys are super common all across Texas. And again, to show you some other points of anatomy here. So number one, that's the chelicerae. These are where the fangs come out of. And as you can see on certain jumping spiders, specifically the Phidippus genus, they can be iridescent and really pretty. Some are purple, some are blue, and with these guys are a very vibrant green. So again, that's where the fangs come out of, and that's where they inject the venom. You can actually see the little fang there. Number two is pointing to it sticking out. And then three, again, they're the little pedipalps. This is a male, so he has kind of little bulbs there on the end. They get very much more pronounced when they're mature than when they're young. And again, that's for the males. So a little bit more about arachnid taxonomy in brief. We're going to kind of focus on the blue ones here. So the acari, which are the mites and ticks, the araeni, which are your spiders, they're my favorite. The apilians, which are harvestmen, pseudoscorpions, scorpions, solifuges, which are also really cool, but you're probably not going to see them around here. They're going to be down south and out west. And Thelophanida, which are the vinegaroons, which are also really cool. So to start off with, let's talk about harvestmen or apilians. And I want to talk about why common names can be trouble. So you may have heard of these as daddy long legs. Well, that name is also applied to cellar spiders, which are true spiders, crane flies, and opilions. So it's very confusing. So I call these guys harvestmen. They have a single body segment compared to the double body segment of a spider. And they're actually scavengers. They will eat eggs, small insects, dead material, sometimes plant material. And the biggest myth about these guys, and you guys might have heard this, is that they are the most venomous spider that exists, but their fangs are too small to penetrate human skin. There's a lot wrong with that. Number one, they're not spiders, they're harvestmen. Number two, they don't have fangs. And number three, they don't have venom. They're completely venomless. So they're totally harmless and they're really cool. They're fun to watch. Here's a close-up of one eating a dead moth. So let me get my little pointer out here and show you guys. But if you look right here, there's their little eyes on a little stalk right there, and then just a single big fused body segment. So really cool little guys. I love harvestmen. Next up, we have the vinegaroons, Telephanida. Now, these are named due to the smell of the concentrated acetic acid liquid that they shoot out of their rear when they feel threatened. And this one is actually standing up with its butt in the air because it did not really want me around it too much. I did put it in a container to show some other folks. This was actually out near Colorado City. And this was one of the biggest ones I've ever seen. It was definitely pushing about 5 inches. It was pretty incredible. Now, to give you an idea of how strong the acetic acid liquid that they shoot out is, basically your table white vinegar is around 5%, and the stuff that these guys shoot out is about 85%. So, and they have really good aim. It's very surprisingly good aim. I got lucky. They did not shoot me in the eyes. I did get it on my hands and I could smell it for about a day. So it's a super, super strong smell. And then they also have, let's show you here. These are actually modified pedipalps. They're not actually pinchers, they're actually pedipalps. They have that spine on the back there, and they actually use this first pair or second pair of legs right here as like almost like sensory. So when they're walking around, they're actually feeling as well. So they're an arachnid, they're not a spider, they're super cool. And let's hope my video actually plays here. It might be a little choppy, but you can kind of see how they move around and how they're waving that second pair of legs around. She was very happy to get away from me. She was tired of me taking pictures of her. So vinegaroon, super cool. If you're around in the south or the west of Texas, you definitely want to check those out. Okay, next up, we have acari, which are your ticks and your mites. And they're not just a bother to humans. So this is actually a beetle that I found, and I went to take a picture of it and it dropped off the plant and played dead. I promise it's totally fine. And to my surprise, when I got really close and took a really up close photo, I was like, what are those things on it? And they're mites. So sometimes there's something called foracy, where an animal will basically hitchhike on another animal to get around. Now, mites and ticks can be either parasitic or phoretic, so they are also problematic, as we know, with a lot of ticks. Honestly, this picture does kind of creep me out a little tiny bit, just because ticks kind of creep me out a little bit, even though they're kind of cool. But yeah, so these are really cool. The beetle's totally fine. They're just kind of hatching a ride on them. And then we also have our scorpions. These are super cool too, obviously. This is a striped bark scorpion. They're very common across Texas. One thing to know is that they'll actually glow under UV light. So typically when I'm out and about at night, I bring one of these really cheap little UV flashlights with me, and I shine it around looking for scorpions and caterpillars and other things that glow. Here's a quick close-up of the stinger where the venom is actually coming out there. And again, like we have with the other ones, these claws that they have are actually modified pedipalps. And then they have the four sets of legs there. So they are an arachnid. And then here's kind of a sample of what they look like under UV light. So same scorpion, one is just in normal flash and one's with that UV light. So they are very bright under UV light. So definitely check out one of those little black lights if you can find one. They're usually on Amazon for like $8 to $12. Totally worth it in my opinion. Next, we have pseudoscorpions. Now, these guys look a lot like a scorpion, but they don't have a stinger. And the other really cool thing about this is this little guy right here is about 2 millimeters in length. What you're seeing there, the little stones, is actually on a big concrete picnic table. And I got really close and I saw little tiny things moving. And I noticed that, okay, it's a pseudoscorpion. So go ahead and got these little modified pedipalps there, and then the 4 sets of legs. They're totally harmless to us. They do prey on larvae, book lice, small ants, mites, and some small flies. And they also can exhibit foracy. So again, they'll hitch a ride on other stuff. And I actually learned that in a really cool way. I was out at Leela looking for spiders because that's what I do. And I took a picture of this fly in a spider web. And when I got home, I looked at it, I'm like, wait a sec, what is that? So there's actually a little pseudoscorpion that was hanging onto the fly when the fly got caught in the spider web. So I thought that was pretty cool, and that pseudoscorpion definitely caught the wrong ride. Next up, and these are like some of my absolute favorite arachnids, are solifuges. They're also called camel spiders or wind scorpions, but they are not spiders and they are not scorpions. I love their cute little derpy faces. I just think they're super cute. They can probably look a little scary. They're not actually that big, but they're really cool. So these long legs in the front are again modified pedipalps there. And they do have 2 sets of jaws that can move independently of each other. And what they do is they actually have almost like a stickiness to the 2 pedipalps, and they'll grab stuff and then kind of just shred it apart with their jaws. Kind of terrifying, but kind of cool in my opinion. Again, they don't have venom or anything like that. They could probably give you a little pinch if you'd bother them, but you know, I touch things anyway, just don't do what I do. Here's another one that I found out again, Colorado City in East Texas, West Texas, sorry. So that's my finger. They're not that big. They are just really cool looking. And I'm going to show you guys a cool video of one that we came across on the 2-track we were driving down. She was actually burrowing. So they will make little burrows where they live and raise their young. And so it might be a little choppy, but she didn't really care that we were there. She was like, I'm going to clear these rocks out of my hole. That's my job right now. So that's what she did. It was kind of fun to watch. Okay. Now next we have spiders, or order Araneae, and these are my absolute favorite out of all the arachnids, of course. Then you have infraorders here. You have Araneomorphes and you have Mygalomorphae. So Araneomorphae is going to be your typical spiders like your orb weavers and your crab spiders and your jumping spiders and stuff like that. And then you have Mygalomorphae. Those are going to be like your tarantulas and trapdoor spiders. I don't usually focus as much on those as I do on the Araneomorphae, but I'm still going to cover them a little bit, and we'll definitely be going through a lot more Araneomorphae spiders in this presentation. So you guys may have seen this. It's one of the Aphonopelma tarantulas. Again, the tarantulas we have here will shoot hair off their butt, and it's a very irritating hair. So you really don't want to mess with them too much. They're very reactive. If you ever find a tarantula hole and you want to get it out of that hole, you can actually grab a really long piece of grass and kind of tickle around the hole, and they will just kind of leap out and try to get it. So kind of fun. That's actually what I did with this lady. So she's not very happy. So this is actually me taking a picture of a tarantula. Now, if you can see that her legs are reared up like that, that's actually, she's defensive. She's like, you're too close to me, you're bothering me, leave me alone. So I let her alone. I took some pictures of her first, and this is kind of what I was faced with and what I saw. So they have those fangs there that you don't really want to mess with, but they also kind of have cute little feet, or at least I think they're cute little feet. So those are your mygalomorphs, like your tarantulas. So I'm going to go into a little bit of ecology and natural history. There are over 1,000 species of spiders documented in Texas, and iNaturalist records show about 529 species observed as of last night, I think, when I checked. In the eastern cross timbers and the cross timbers, there definitely should be more. So I challenge you guys to get out there and take more pictures of spiders if you can. So with this, I'm going to sprinkle in just a ton of pictures because it's my favorite way to show off the spiders. And we're going to specifically focus on the Araneomorphae spiders because that's kind of my specialty. So it's helpful to understand different spider families. And in order to do that, spider eye arrangements actually help because for families, a lot of times they have very distinct eye arrangements. Now, some spiders can have 8 eyes, 6 eyes, or even no eyes. There are cave-dwelling species of spiders that evolved to not have eyes because they did not need them because it's dark, which is kind of cool. Now, it is not always possible to ID a spider to species with photos. Some families are just hyper diverse, and a lot of times they're actually not very well studied. So there's a lot out there that are not described. I've come across quite a few crab spiders in my time here in Texas that were not described yet. They're new species. So arachnologists will actually dissect the spiders and use the epigynum in the female or the pedipalps in the males to determine the species. Now, again, eye arrangement is kind of helpful to start learning at least. And one thing I'm going to just kind of call out here early on is just because something is brown and it's small and it's a spider does not mean it's a brown recluse. We'll kind of go into that a little bit more. But for example here, number 1, I know that's a wolf spider because he's got those 2 big cute eyes, those 4 eyes underneath in a row, and the 2 right there. I also know that number 2 and 3 are salticids or jumping spiders. I also call those the gateway spiders, and I'll kind of talk about why. So those got 2 big eyes there, 2 eyes there, and then they even have 2 on the back of their head, so they can kind of see all around. Another one of my favorites are the long-jawed orb weavers here. They got those really long chelicerae, and then I think this one right here, these are the Dinopody, which I think we have a single species somewhere along the coast or in South Texas. These are really cool because they're called the net casting spider or the ogre face spider, which I can kind of see why it's called an ogre face spider. But they have a really cool hunting technique that I'll kind of talk about a little bit later. Now let's talk about sexing spiders. So a lot of spiders, most of them are going to be sexually dimorphic. On the left here, you have a female Argioperantia or a yellow garden spider. It's one of the Araniidae or the orb weavers. And on the right, you have a male Argioperantia. Now, what I want to call out is that this male, he is actually just the size of her head there. He's a very tiny compared to the female. So little itty bitty. So the males have pedipalps. That's kind of how you know they're males a lot of times, and also how you can get a better ID on them if you're looking under a microscope. A vagina on the female, so they're not going to have that big boxing glove structure, and I'll kind of show you a close-up of those so you understand a little bit more. And then there's size differences, so she's a lot bigger than him. There's also a lot of times color differences, so kind of like birds. So where basically the males are like really bright and colorful and they do dances, and the females are just kind of like a tan. They just want to kind of blend in with the undergrowth and everything else. It's kind of like that with spiders. There's actually some really cool jumping spiders. You may have heard of the peacock spiders in Australia. The males are super bright and colorful, and they actually do dances and all kinds of stuff for the females. We actually have a similar genus here in the United States and in Texas called Habernatus. So they're super cool. They're really brightly colored. The males have some greens and blues and reds and different like hair sticking up in different places. They're really cool, and they'll dance for the females. Okay. Here's kind of the underside of a male Argioperantia that we were just looking at a minute ago. And then just to kind of zoom in there, those are the pedipalps. So you can see these are structures here that are kind of enlarged, and they kind of look a little funky. And that's because they're actually used for sperm depositing, and they match the female's epigynum. So that's the detail of that. Now, juvenile spiders are kind of hard to tell whether they're going to be male or female early on. Spiders will actually molt to grow, and usually for at least males until the final molt, you don't always know if it's just a subadult female or a subadult male. So When you either see the epigynom though, or you see those big pedipalps, that's kind of when you know what it is. Now here's the underside of an Argioperantia. I just took this with my cell phone because she was huge. Like this was one of the biggest yellow garden spiders I had seen. And you can perfectly see so much detail in her underside. And I'm going to actually show you a little bit more about that. So under here, this is the epigynom that I was mentioning. That's the female reproductive organ. Down here, you can actually see some detail of her spinnerets. They're actually like spigots where the silk will come out. And then this is also a cool feature that you can see here. These are the book lungs. These are actually how the spiders breathe. So they're called book lungs because they have many slats or pages and they're used for oxygen exchange. So kind of cool. I love those spiders. They're so neat. The other thing is, you know, spiders lay egg sacs, and different egg sacs can be so distinct that you can actually tell sometimes what species laid them. When I see these around, they're about that big, usually sometimes a little bit smaller. I know that this is an Argioperantia or a yellow garden spider. So it's pretty distinct. It has that papery look, but with like the black zigzags. And then here's another one. So this is a Basilica orb weaver, or Mycenogia lemniscata. I try not to butcher that name. And it's a very pretty spider, but what you might have seen actually are her egg sacs. So they dangle off of little silk threads, and they each have a different amount of little balls that contain the actual eggs of the spider. So these sacs can contain anywhere between like 20 and 1,000 eggs, depending on like the spider species. And sometimes for this one, you'll see a big line of them like here where there's 5. Other times you might just see 1 or 2 dangling off. So they're pretty distinct. So go out, look in trees. They like oaks a lot. You might see these. Now, another thing that's kind of a myth about spiders is they're just killers and they don't care about anything or anyone. They just want to destroy everything, all that. Well, some of them actually provide maternal care, and they actually have pre-social behaviors in a lot of different families. So this is a wolf spider, and she has her egg sac there actually. Now, wolf spiders will actually attach their egg sacs to the spinnerets and carry it around until it's ready to hatch. And if you can see right here, there's actually a baby that started coming out of that egg sac. The next step when the babies hatch from a mother wolf spider egg sac is they will actually ride on her back for a long time. So here's kind of a look. You might have seen these. So these are all the little babies, and they're going to sit there and hitch a ride on mom until they're ready to kind of go off and hunt on their own. I just love this shot because you can see them running around her face, and she's probably like irritated, like, why are you doing this? Like how kids do. But yeah, so super cool. They actually care. A couple times I've actually seen where maybe they actually accidentally got disturbed and some of the babies will drop off. So if you see one of these, don't try to crush it. I try to tell people not to kill any spiders, but you definitely don't want to try to kill these because the babies will just scatter and you'll have like hundreds of babies everywhere. Also just because it's not nice, so just don't kill spiders. But anyway, they're really cool. Here's kind of a close-up so you can see their little butts. Now, even as young spiderlings like this, you can start seeing kind of distinct patternings on them. And I want to show you this next one because this is actually a Rabidosa wolf spider. And can't really tell yet if this is a Rabidosa rabida or punctillata. We have both in our area because actually her pattern is covered by all her babies right now. But this is a Rabidosa wolf spider, and her babies look distinctly different than this one. So already you can start seeing kind of patterns even when they're that young. So another cool spider family are the mesh weavers or Dictynidae. And I'm bringing these up because, again, they do sometimes live with each other. There's a huge myth that female spiders will always kill the males. That is not true at all. It happens sometimes, but not always. The other kind of fun fact is that sometimes scientists have found that male spiders will just spontaneously die after mating. So yeah, go figure. But the dictynids are kind of cool because you have the male and the female living together in these little webs. And to give you scale, these are like little specks. And these little guys, you can find them on the tips of grasses and other little plants in the grasslands. And different species will even be on like curled leaves. And I've even seen some on junipers. So really cool. This one right here with the big abdomen, that's the female, and this one with the smaller abdomen is the male. And here's another example where you can really see the morphological differences between the male and female. So again, the top one here is the female. She got a big booty, and the male is here. There's some slight color differentiation as well, but he has a much smaller bottom there, and he also has those big pedipalps with boxing gloves. Now, spiders molt to grow, so they can have anywhere from probably 7 or more instars until they're kind of at their final mature stage. Females will typically molt more than males in some cases, and young spiders will molt much more than adult mature spiders. Now, with araneomorphes, if a spider, let's say, loses its leg and it's still not at its full mature stage yet, they can actually regain limbs and appendages while they molt. It might take 1 or 2 instars to do that, but they can grow a leg back or a pedipalp back if for some reason it got ripped off of them. And I do have another big spider molt here that I wish I could show you guys, but I think it actually might be the one I have in my hand in that picture. The cool thing about the molts is you can still see kind of patterns on some of them. So this is the cephalothorax here, and you can see the stripes there, and a little bit of the eye arrangement. Me, because I stare at spiders too much, I know that this is a lycosid or a wolf spider. And because of that patterning on the head, I know that it's a Rabidosa species. But you can even see the pedipalps here. And with the shape of that, it looks like it's kind of starting to bulge. It's probably was a male, is my guess. So really cool. You can't usually always tell the exact species, but sometimes you can get lucky and at least get down to like genus or something with the molts. Here's another one. This is another great example of a molt. This is a salticid or a jumping spider. And I know that because, again, you got that cute little eye arrangement there with the 2 big eyes and the smaller eyes and the ones in the back. And I know it's a Phidippus because, like we talked about earlier, there's some iridescence on the chelicerae right here. So pretty cool. The other kind of neat thing is they don't just shed their exoskeleton, they actually shed some of their stomach lining and esophagus. So if I had a better close-up, sometimes you can actually see those parts inside here where they come out. The other way I knew this was a jumping spider is because this molt is actually right on the sleeping sac right there, underneath of it. So the spider was actually inside the sleeping sac after it molted. They are at risk when they've molted. They're a little bit softer. It takes a little time for them to harden, and it takes a little bit of time to come out. And there's also sometimes failings where it doesn't go well and they get stuck and they can die. So it's kind of a risky thing. It's a risky thing to grow. Now let's talk a little bit about how spiders hunt. So I think most of us see like orb weavers and those big, beautiful orb webs, and that's only a small piece. There's actually a lot more to it than just the webs. So there are about 7 different types of spider silk, and the silk is made of proteins that are super strong, and different types have different elasticity and strength. So these is not only used for webs, but also for making sleeping sacs, like what we saw in that other picture, and for egg sacs, like we saw in those other pictures about the egg sacs. And some of them even use them for traps. So that net casting spider that I talked about, the ogre face spider with the big eyes, they actually make a little trap between their forefront legs, and they'll wait and ambush something. They'll actually come down and grab it with that little net. That's actually how they hunt. So it's really cool. All spiders produce silk, but not all make webs from the silk. That's kind of the main point here. Here's another cute little orb weaver in a web. Had nice morning dew there. This is another orb weaver, Aranidae. Now to talk about the orb webs a little bit more, you have about 3 families of spiders that will produce the orb looking webs. The ones that are just kind of vertical, those are going to be your Aranidae or typical orb weavers. You have Tetragnathidae or the long-jawed orb weavers, and I'll kind of show you what their webs. They have an orb web, but they're usually kind of parallel to the ground or at an angle. And then you also have Euliboridae, or the feather-legged orb weavers. So I'll kind of go through those a little bit later, but this is an Archaeobarantica that we mentioned. They do use the orb web for prey capture. So they'll build this beautiful web, wait for something to fly into it, inject it with venom. It actually digests and kind of smushes it up, and they kind of slurp it out like a Slurpee. Kind of gross, but kind of cool. What I really want you guys to do though, next time you see yellow garden spider webs, I want you to look really close around that web and see if you can find one of these guys. So they're about this big, real tiny. They associate with those really big spiders, and they're called dewdrop or robber spiders. And the coolest thing about these is they're actually kleptoparasites. So they hang around Argioperantia webs, and they will steal prey and other stuff from the spider. So super cool. Just to show you how tiny, that's my hand, and that's it crawling on me. Again, they're not out to get you. I'm just going to put this here too. The majority of spiders that you come across in your daily life are not at all medically significant and are pretty harmless. There's only 2 we got to worry about, and I'll tell you guys about those later. But here's an example of a long-jawed orb weaver web, or Tetragnathidae. Now, again, these typically are going to be a little bit parallel to the surface, and you'll find these a lot near water. This one was really smart. So this is some gilgai at Matthews Prairie. It's one of the NPAT prairies. And she built the web right along the surface of the gilgai. So anything flying out or flying to that water is going to get caught in her web, and she's going to have dinner. So pretty cool. Here's a close-up of one of those Tetragnathidae long-jawed orb weavers. So they have slightly extended chelicerae here, but they're super cool. Sometimes they'll just kind of straighten themselves out real close on like grasses and reeds, so they're kind of hard to see sometimes if they're not directly in the web. They're very good at hiding. And going back to the yellow garden spider, because they're really great. They're a really great example of a lot of things. So this is actually a younger Argioperantia, so not quite an adult. This is a juvenile, or pretty young. And I kind of know that just by the way it looks, but also the stabilimentum here. So sometimes you'll see that zigzag pattern in the orb weaver web. And now there's a little bit of a debate in the scientific community about what that's really used for. Some think it might be for visual or bird avoidance, or to break up their pattern for camouflage, or maybe even structural integrity or stabilization. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but hopefully they'll figure it out at some point. But I initially just saw this, and I'm like, that looks like an Argiope web. And then a second later, she literally popped down there and sat there, and I'm like, oh, yep, that confirms it. That's what it is. Now, again, this is kind of the detail of an older one's web and that stabilimentum. So you can see the different silk that it has here compared to those zigzag. It's much thicker, and yeah, it's really cool. And I actually, if it's not too choppy, I have a beautiful video of a pregnant Argioperantia. It was pretty windy this day, and you can tell she was pregnant. She has a very enlarged abdomen, so that's how I know. So she was kind of struggling to do her zigzag very cleanly, but you can see how she's putting out all that extra silk into that. Much different than the other threads that you're seeing around her. So this is another one I mentioned. So this is a different family than the other Aranidae that we're talking about. This is Euloboridae, also known as the feather-legged orb weavers. They have a really cool, distinct, almost like tune or saw blade type pattern around their web. And the really, really cool part about these guys, it's one of the only families of spiders that are venomless. They don't have any venom. Pretty much all of their spiders have venom, even though they might not be medically significant. These do not. So instead, what they're going to do is capture the prey in the web, and they actually wrap them up in silk and then regurgitate some digestive enzymes that kind of breaks that prey item down. And again, they slurp up the liquefied remains. So yum for them, I guess. Not so much for me. They are pretty though. Here's a close-up of one of them. They have really cool bumps there on the abdomen, and then they do have, this is why they're called feather-legged, they have those like feathering on their front two legs there. So kind of cool. Now, another type of web that you might have seen when you're out walking around are the Linyphiidae spiders, or the bowl and doily weavers. So these will have literally a bowl-shaped web, and they usually hang out right down there. They're usually very tiny, you can hardly see them. but they have a whole different type of web. And here's a close-up of one of them, because you might not always see what they really look like and how pretty they truly are. Because again, a lot of these spiders like little tiny specks. So they're really cool looking. It almost has like a marbling going on there on her abdomen. So super cool spiders. Another really common one are the Agolenidae. So instead of making an orb web, these have a large sheet web, and then there's a funnel at the end where they hide. And what they do is, if they sense prey or something walking on that sheet web, they come running out of that funnel and grab it and take it back in. So super cool. You'll probably see those all over. I actually found some on bridges and in trees and up in trees, like they're pretty much everywhere. Here's kind of a close-up, because you don't always get to see these close up. A lot of times they'll see movement and just immediately hide in the funnel, and they're almost impossible to get out after that. And then here's a close-up. This one actually built her web in a bridge railing, and it was nighttime. I had a flash, and a midge flew right onto her sheet web, and she came out and grabbed it, and I gave her some dinner. A little bit back to the mesh weavers of the Dictynidae. So these little ones, again, they're, like I mentioned, they can be at the tips of really tiny pieces of grass and different plants. They're almost like specks. So if you ever see like a glob of webbing that's kind of messy, look really close and maybe blow on it a little bit, and you might see these guys move. So the female is actually in here and the male's here, and it kind of looks like she's not letting them in, which is kind of funny. Maybe they had an argument, I don't know, but they're kind of cute. And again, showing you that male and females do live together. Here's another one on rattlesnake master. So I believe different species or genera might actually prefer different plants. So pretty cool. And then we have another hunting method. These are our ambush predators. So these guys are not going to make orb webs or really any kind of webs. They are solely going to rely on their ability to camouflage. So these are your flower crab spiders. Tomicidae is the family. And some of the genera of the flower ones are like Misumina, Mechaphasa, Misuminoides. This one blended in really well with the Silphium and looks like maybe a spotted cucumber beetle or something like there to munch on. There's a lot of color differences in these. Here's another one that looks like she actually might be pregnant. She has a really big booty there. She's white, she blends in with that little tiny white flower. She almost seems too big, but she was still able to catch this fly and eat it. So pretty cool. And then another one, and this is, again, I'm trying to show you guys not to kill the spiders. So they're free pest control. If we didn't have spiders, we would be overrun with inverts that we don't like and don't want. It's kind of crazy how much they actually eat per year. I think per year they eat more biomass than the entire human population. So it's kind of incredible, but this is actually a Cytodes, or a spitting spider. You'll typically see these out at night. They're kind of nocturnal. And it's eating a roach. So I love having spiders around because they're eating stuff that I do not want to have in my house. These are also really cool because they catch prey by actually spitting a fluid out of it. It's a combination of both silk and venom. It immobilizes the prey and venomates it, and then they kind of wrap it up, and then they'll do the whole digest it, slurp it up thing. So yeah. And then here's another little video. We have a garden here in the spring and summer, and it's as natural as possible. We don't use any pesticides or anything. And I just love having my little spider friends around because we had a lot of these sharpshooter leafhoppers eating all our plants and different other things. And I just love like this is a little Phidippus audax jumping spider, and she was just there eating all the pests for us. Now, spiders eat a lot of different things. They also eat each other, so they can definitely cannibalize. So this is a jumping spider, an Eris species here, and it's not playing with this other spider. It's actually eating this other jumping spider, which is a just small Hensia species jumping spider. So there is cannibalism. Here's another example of cannibalism. This is actually one of my favorite species of spiders here. It's a Euryopus cobweb spider. I'll tell you why it's my favorite, but it's being eaten by another crab spider. So not all crab spiders are, bright and flowery. Some actually are they're bark crab spiders and ground crab spiders. So they're trying to blend in with other things other than flowers. So talking about mimicry, so this is a really cool mastophora or bolus or bird dropping spider, and they actually mimic bird poop. So if you look from above, it really does kind of look like bird poop. They have really neat face. This is the face right here where her eyes are. She's got these weird little protrusions there, and I was lucky enough to even find a bunch of egg sacs of hers when I saw her. So they're really cool. The common name here refers to the genus is a practice of snaring prey in mid-flight by swinging a little silk line with an adhesive blob on the end. And that blob mimics the scent of certain pheromones of different moths. So they actually specialize on moths. So really cool spiders. More mimics here. This was actually the first ant mimic jumping spider I had seen in Texas. This was at Pettinger Nature Preserve. I was looking at this, what I thought was a little ant, until it jumped off my finger and hung down by a line. I was like, oh, okay, let me look closer at this. And it was actually an ant mimic jumping spider. So you can see the eyes there. It's got 8 legs. And what the ant mimics will do is actually they'll wave around either the first pair or the second pair of legs and kind of make them look like antennae of an ant. So those are pretty cool. Here's another example of one. So look closely at ants because they may not always be ants. And here's kind of a little example of their movement a little bit. So they're waving around those legs there a little bit. Not the greatest videos working on it, but yeah, it at least shows kind of their movements. Now, this is my all-time favorite spider. It's Euryopus, or I don't actually think they have a common name. It's basically one of the cobweb spiders, but these ones don't actually make cobwebs. So typically cobweb spiders, you're gonna find them like the corner of your house. They're gonna have like a messy web. These ones actually actively hunt down ants, and they specialize on ants. So if you have ants around, you might see these, and they're super pretty. Actually, that was I believe a Solenopsis, it looks like. So one of the imported fire ants. And then this one, I actually have a video somewhere of it running. It caught this carpenter ant or Camponotus species. It wrapped it up and injected it, and then it carried it across a bridge railing. It was late at night. It was really cool to watch. Now, we talked about some stuff that spiders will eat and how they hunt. There are things that eat spiders. They get eaten sometimes. So this is actually a picture of a Platycryptus undatus, or a tan jumping spider, super common around this area. Look for that chevron pattern back there. And she's being dragged away by a wasp. So this wasp actually stung her to paralyze her, and then the wasp will drag it away and put it in a chamber and lay a larvae on it. And that larvae will eat the spiders, and that's their food. So they're alive when it happens. And it's kind of terrifying because they're alive, but they cannot move. And some wasps will actually chew off the legs before they put them in their little nests. So kind of cool. Other things that eat spiders, if you like birds, they eat spiders. If you like snakes, they eat spiders. Even lizards and other vertebrates. So, a lot of things eat spiders, so they're good to have around in multiple ways. Here's another good example. This is basically I call it a spider piñata. So the mud dauber wasps, some of them specialize in certain species of spiders. So I was out at the grasslands and I saw some chromatogaster or acrobat ants breaking apart a wasp nest, a mud dauber wasp nest. And I was like, what are they doing? Because I saw something red in there, and I just kind of poked it and it just shattered apart. And it was filled with black widows, so Latrodectus species. So it's one of the wasps that actually specialize on black widows. And I had never seen this many black widows in my life in one spot. So in this picture here, you can actually see the larvae. It's attaching right there by its abdomen. Again, the spiders are all paralyzed but alive. I did try to bring some back. It does not work, or at least not for me. They all just ended up dying. But yeah, that larvae will just eat and grow and molt and become another wasp. But yeah, I call those spider piñatas because you never know what you're going to get in them. Here's another example. This is a fragile fork-tail damselfly. eating a spider, and I believe that's a crab spider just based on the legs and the way they look there. Now, this is not my photo. I really wish it was, and I really wish I had seen this, but this is actually a rough green snake eating a Trichonephila species orb weaver, one of those big golden orb weavers down near the coast a little bit. So super cool. So lots of things eat spiders, so you definitely want to keep them around, even if you don't like them too much, because other things are eating them too. Now I'm just going to kind of go through a bunch of different spiders that you might come across that are kind of more common in our area. So look closely as you're exploring, from the tips of grasses all the way down to the undergrowth, the tips of flowers, plants, leaves, even in your house, your backyard, they're all over. We're literally always surrounded by spiders. So Phidippus audax here, very common. It's got that green chelicerae and the black and white striping. Here's a little one that I saved from some water. It looked like it was very happy that it was out of the water. The really cool thing is some of them, the juveniles will actually have this orange coloration until their final adult molt, and that's when it actually turns into that white that you see there. So they got that little triangle and then the two little dashes. Here's another one just kind of peeking out. So they do have little sleep sacks that they'll go into at night, and that's kind of where they hide. This is another Phidippus species. So the Phidippus genus is like the biggest genus of spiders, or not the biggest genus, but the biggest size spiders in the US. And they're also really cool. I call them gateway spiders because of how cute they are. So this is a Phidippus mysticeus, or a high eyelash jumping spider. This was out at the LBJ grasslands. This is a male, so he's much more colorful than the female. And it's the pedipalps even have this really cool yellow and white pattern there. This is a female Phidippus pruinosus. A lot more dull in color. You can still see some iridescence there of the chelicerae. And there's her pattern there. So a little bit more dull, a little more toned down, but still really pretty. This is another jumping spider, Platycryptis undatus, or tan jumping spider. These are super common. You'll find them on park benches, on fences, on trees. They do really well camouflaging on trees. That's kind of where they do the best. The males, this is actually a female. She has that white stripe under her eyes. And males will often have a beautiful copper stripe under their eyes. This is one of the Eris species jumping spiders, just kind of poking his arm at me. He was actually looking for a silk line to jump up on my flash unit. He was very curious. So some of them will love people and want to actually check you out and see what you are, and some will not want anything to do with you. I think they have chemoreceptors sometimes, and they don't always like the feel of our skin. So sometimes they don't like us either. These are really cute, small jumping spiders. They're really tiny, and these are also specialists. This is Anacytus canosa, or a twin flag jumping spider. They have really cool patterns, and they specialize on ants. So a lot of times you'll find these near ants. And here they're called the twin flag jumping spiders because they wave those little pedipalps around like little white flags. Looks kind of cool. This is a Hensia palmera male. This is just kind of close up. You can see those big pedipalps there. He's kind of brightly colored. The first two legs are dark and longer, and the other three legs are lighter. So here's what he looks like from the top. And then here's a female to show you the difference. So there, again, there's that sexual dimorphism where you have the male brightly patterned, brightly colored, and then the female, she needs to blend in more. This is one of our favorite spiders, or at least one of mine, the Pusitia viridans, or the green lynx spiders. She's definitely pregnant there. Sometimes you'll actually get really pretty red colors in them a little bit later in the season, or maybe in certain populations. It looks really cool. Look on Spanish gold. You'll usually see those on Spanish gold and some stuff like that. Here's a younger one, a really brightly colored green on some rattlesnake master. And then here's one that's actually munching on a plant bug. So they got really cute eyes, or at least I think they're really cute eyes. So this is actually another type of lynx spider, but it's the same family, different genus. So this is Oxyopes, and they still got the really spiky legs there and a similar eye arrangement, but they're a lot smaller. You'll actually see these jumping around in grass a lot, and sometimes they're confused for jumping spiders because how much they bounce. So this is a striped lynx spider, or an Oxyopes salticus. We also have wolf spiders. They're super cool and they're hyper diverse. So they come in sizes that are like barely little specks to your big Hogna and Tigrosa and Rabidosa ones that get very big. Some of the easiest ones to identify are the Rabidosa rabida and the Rabidosa punctata. A lot of the other wolf spiders are so diverse and look so similar that it's pretty much impossible to ID them just by photos. We might be getting a little better at it, but it's still pretty hard. Now this one is a Rabidosa rabida. So you can see the two dark stripes, the white stripes there on the head, and then the back, you have this chevron pattern in the dark spot there on the abdomen. Compare that to this one, Rabidosa punctata, you still have those dark stripes outlined by the white stripes on the cephalothorax, and it still has that dark stripe on the back, but there's no chevrons in that pattern. It's not broken up at all. So we have both of these in our area. So you have Rabidosa rabida, Rabidosa punctata. They give spiders a lot of really scary names. I hold these all, don't hold things if you don't know what they are, don't pick up things if you don't know what they are. But you know, I've never been bit by a spider with the hundreds of spiders that I've handled. I just want to put that out there, but they're actually really cool. They're not out to get you. This is just another example of the diversity of wolf spiders. They have so many different patterns and they're so cool. This is another pretty common one. This is one of the nursery web spiders. The family is Pissaridae. This is a Pissarina mirror, or the American nursery web spider. And they're called that because they'll actually lay their egg sacs, protect them. The little babies will hatch in there and they'll still stay there and actually protect the babies for a while. This one's actually cool. So this is not a native spider. This is actually native to South America. It's called Falconina gracilis. The family is Corinidae, which comprises ant mimics and ground sac spiders. So it was introduced to the Gulf states in the US, and I have a feeling it might be because they prey on Solenopsis invicta, or the red imported fire ant. So it's actually eating one of the red imported fire ants. So again, if you do not like imported fire ants, keep your spiders around. A little bit more about some of the crab spiders. Again, this is another one of the flower crab spiders in Silphium. She blends in really well and she's kind of just waiting there with outstretched arms. When a pollinator or something flies up, she's going to grab it and bring it to her and inject it with venom. So they are little ambush predators. Here's another one to show more color differences. This is on some Monarda. So she's, again, just kind of waiting there. And then this beautiful one, I think these are cooler than the flower ones, but that's just me. This is, I think it's either one of the bark crab spiders or the ground crab spiders. But again, they don't need to be bright and showy. They're trying to blend in with something completely different. But they still are ambush predators. They're going to kind of wait and grab something. We have a lot of orb weavers diversity, a lot of orb weaver diversity here. This is one of the spotted orb weavers, or Neoscana crucifera. They've got all those spikes all over their abdomen, and they got really cute faces, or at least I think they're really cute faces there. And some of the other really cool orb weavers you might see are the ones with the different spiny backs. So this is an Acanthoptera. So again, family Araenidae like the previous one, but completely different morphology. So you can see all the different spikes on the back. And I kind of want to go into more of the spiky ones because these are actually some of my favorites. So we have Microthena gracilis, or the spine Microthena up top. We have Gastracantha cancriformis, or the spiny-backed orb weaver. These are definitely common. You've probably seen these around. If you look hard enough, you might see these, but they're oftentimes a little bit more east. And these are definitely out east more. So I'm not sure if they're going to be in the cross timbers too much, but they're definitely out east. This is Varicosa arenata, or the arrow-headed orb weaver. These are all Araenidae. These are all orb weavers, so they're going to be in their orb webs. A lot of times their butts are too heavy and they don't do well not in their webs. And the Gastracantha cancriformis is like one of my super favorites because of the different color variations. So you might have seen like maybe the white, but there's also yellow, orange, and red too. So go out there and try to find them all. I am trying to find more of them. And then this is another, it's Microthena sagittata, arrow-shaped orb weaver. You probably won't see this here, but if you go out east a little bit, you most likely will if you look hard enough. And then this is another beautiful orb weaver. This is Araenius marmorius, or the marbled orb weaver. Again, typically like in the woodland areas, I find them a lot more out east than here, but there are 2 observations around the Cross Timbers area. So I really think people just need to go out and find stuff more and take pictures of it and put it on iNet. This is a tetragnatha. I kind of always laugh when I see people taking pictures in the bluebonnets because I know it's in the bluebonnets. Because I take pictures of all the different eggs and bugs and spiders that are living and crawling on all the bluebonnets. So that's a tetragnathidae, or a long-jawed orb weaver. So a different family than the other orb weavers, but again, they do make those orb webs, just usually again parallel or kind of at an angle. This is Leucage venusa, or the orchard orb weaver. You can sometimes see these also. It's tetragnathidae, the family, on those parallel webs, and they'll be hanging under, and they have a little orange kind of coloration under their abdomen. That's a good way to kind of tell what they might be. You have your cobweb spiders. This is a Theridion australis with her spiderlings. So she had an egg sac. It's actually right here, and the baby's hatched, and she's still there with her babies, taking care of them, making sure they're okay. This is just kind of a close-up of those babies, so they look quite different from her, at least at this stage. Just another example of another cobweb spider with an egg sac. Again, they're gonna make those sticky, messy webs. They don't usually get too big. They're usually pretty small, and they'll be like in trees and stuff. And then finally, I'm going to talk a little bit about the medically significant spiders. So what you have here is a picture of a Loxosceles reclusa, or the brown recluse. And unfortunately, they've received a really bad rap, but there are many, many misdiagnoses of recluse bites that are actually infections like MRSA. So if anyone's interested, I can send some links to some articles. There's actually a scientist named Rick Vedder who's really working to try to not have that myth keep spreading, because you'll have basically doctors diagnosing a brown recluse bite all the way up in states where they don't even occur. They don't even exist there. So that's one of your brown recluses. So again, if you do think you got bit by one, there's really no way of knowing unless you see it bite you. You can't just see 2 holes in your skin and assume it was a spider. There's actually no way of knowing what bit you. But they got 6 eyes. They're actually in 2 pairs. It's kind of hard to make out, but they have 6 eyes. Here's another close-up, and this shows kind of that fiddleback that people always talk about. So not every brown spider is a brown recluse. There's actually a lot of spiders that look almost identical to this. And without really knowing spiders, it's hard to tell apart. Some of them even have that fiddle shape on their back. It's actually not too uncommon. So all bites of brown recluses are accidental. These spiders are not trying to come after you. They don't want anything to do with humans typically. What happens is when humans accidentally put their hands or feet or lean up against them and press them to their skin, that's when they bite. So all spider bites are accidental. They're not out there just trying to hunt us and get us or anything like that. Okay, there's another just close up real quick there. So there's some of the spiders commonly mistaken for a recluse are crevice weavers like Kukulcania, wolf spiders. I've even seen people call cellar spiders brown recluses. It's really hard unless you really know a spider and you study spiders. So for example, we have about 4 or 5 species of recluse spiders in Texas. This is kind of the range map. So like I mentioned, there'll be, diagnoses of like recluse bites all the way up here and in different areas. I think people are actually starting to sue doctors for misdiagnoses of this, or I've heard of some stuff like that, but yeah, there's a lot of misinformation here. So a couple different things you might want to look at. There's something called The Myth of the Brown Recluse by Rick Vedder. That's a really good one. And again, I can send some links if anyone's interested. There's a lot of conditions that can cause necrotizing wounds that could be misdiagnosed as recluse bites. And that could be herpes simplex, herpes zoster, diabetic ulcers, fungal infections, vasculitis. There's just so much that can basically, people would be, oh, this is because of a brown recluse, and it's usually not. So lots of myths there. This is the other medically significant spider genus we have to look out for. This is the Latrodectus or black widow spider. So it's actually a cobweb spider. So the family is Theridiidae. Now they can be found across Texas. We have about 4 species occurring here: the southern black widow, western black widow, brown widow, and potentially even sometimes northern black widow. So the females are considered medically significant. If you see that you've been bit by one, you should probably seek medical attention. They have neurotoxic venom, which affects your nervous system, and it's not really pleasant. Now, males and juveniles are typically not considered to be medically significant. But don't just go picking up black widows like I do. Just don't do that, just to put that out there. There have been no confirmed deaths of a black widow bite since like the 80s or later. So, but this is the underside. This is where you'll see that, typical hourglass pattern. And just to call out, sometimes they'll have red on their abdomen and sometimes they won't. Sometimes it's just like a solid black. So that can actually appear quite different. This is a male. So there is sexual dimorphism there again. Males are very small. They still typically have that hourglass, but they're a lot tinier. Don't touch black widows, but here is me holding a male black widow. He's totally not trying to kill me or anything. He's just kind of walking around like, what is this substrate? It is the weirdest substrate I've ever felt. Totally cool, but you can see his big pedipalps there. And he's mostly just trying to figure out what this substrate is and where he is, and probably look around for a female or something. So they're not out to get us. So iNaturalist is an amazing source to learn more about spiders. As of last night, there are over 180,000 observations in Texas, 529 species. These are kind of the tops here. So get out there, take pictures of spiders. I am happy to help ID them on iNaturalist. And then some really cool references here. These are the different books that I have in my personal little library. iNaturalist is also a huge source of learning for me because there's actually arachnologists on there. And Bug Guide's another cool source. This book, Spiders of North America by Sarah Rose, just came out this year. And even if you're just kind of new to spiders or want to learn more, it is an incredible source. It's like up there with the amazing bird books that they have for birds. Like, this is incredible. It is amazing. It has so many examples, so much information, and there's beautiful photos in there. She's actually one of the people that I sent spiders to across the states. So lots of good options there to learn more about spiders. And if you have any questions, tag me on iNaturalist. I'm at Wild Carrot. You can also email me if you'd like. So again, I hope you kind of learned a little bit of why spiders are beneficial and why you shouldn't kill them. Know that they're a great food source if you like birds. Don't kill spiders. So they're mostly harmless to humans. You really only have to watch out for the 2. Everything else is medically insignificant. So I hope you guys have learned something.
Good. We do have some questions from the chat. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. The first question was, can't read it. Okay, on their legs, are those horns or hairs that are sticking out on their legs?
So those are actually hairs that stick out, and some of them do have claws on the very end of their feet to grip their silk. They're little tiny claws. You're not really going to feel those.
Okay, now next question. Are you writing a book?
I wish. One day I would love to. My day job is definitely getting in the way of that right now, but I would love to one day.
Are there telltale signs of a recluse bite?
No. So again, unless you have specifically seen the spider bite you, or let's say you rolled over onto something, you felt something, and then you see a brown recluse and you can confirm it's a brown recluse, there's no way of knowing that you were bit by a brown recluse, or really anything. So you have to physically see evidence of that organism to know what it was that bit you.
That's the end of the questions, but repeated over and over again in the chat is, your pictures are beautiful. and they appreciate your enthusiasm.
Awesome.
I had
That's
a
great.
question
I'm glad
for
you guys
Megan.
liked it.
Do we have any questions from the folks that are here? Yes, could someone turn the lights back on? Yes. Did you hear that, Megan?
I did not.
Question is, do any spiders overwinter? What's their lifespan? Are most
Yeah.
of them short?
So they can actually overwinter as eggs, as juveniles, or sometimes as adults. And that varies by family, really. And then also the lifespan is very variable. It really depends on what family or species of spider you're talking about. I think in captivity, typically, or I guess in the wild, 2 to 3 years. I had a jumping spider that I raised from Little Speck, and she was about 2 years old when she finally died. So it just depends. Males definitely don't live as long though.
No, because sometimes they're dinner.
Sometimes, not all the time.
Question about the harvestmen having only one body segment and yet
Mhm.
still being considered whatever classification.
Arachnids. Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yep. They're still arachnids. They just have a fused, basically they're fused into one.
You may have started with this question, but how did you get started? You know, like, were you a little kid and you said, I'm gonna like spiders because no one else does, or what was it?
I've just always kind of liked everything, but in the last like 5 or 6 years since I've been to Texas, really, I just was like, oh wow, spiders are cool. And then I got some macro photography equipment. I'm like, they're really cool. And then they kind of find me. I have found weird, rare species show up in my car. I have 3 jumping spiders living on my front door of my apartment, 2 males and a female, Mavia and Clemens. And it was both color morphs, always going after trying to like get the girl. Like they just kind of come to me sometimes.
You
So,
must be a spider whisperer. That's it.
yeah, maybe.
Oh, okay. This is grandma talking because we haven't read Charlotte's Web yet, but we will. So since I'm a master naturalist, do you have any guesses on what kind of spider Charlotte is?
Oh, she was an orb weaver.
Okay.
Yeah, she got that nice little orb web. She had to have been an orb weaver.
Thank you.
I haven't had a spider talk to me yet. It would be cool. Some of them
Or-
can make
Or
noise.
spell, yeah. Zane
them-
has a question.
Go for it.
And what kind of scorpion was that? Wind scorpions, is there a maximum size?
So they're not actual scorpions, they're solifuges. And in the US, they don't get too big, maybe like that total body length. In other countries, they can get huge.
Mhm.
So over in the Middle East, I think you can have like some really pretty large size ones. Again, they're gonna give you a good pinch. I've handled them, I've not been bit. Don't pick things up, but my usually thing that I say is be the substrate. Just don't even let them know. So I never try to grab anything. I just kind of let them walk on me. But yeah, just don't grab things.
I had a former student who knew the technique for picking up regular scorpions and he offered to teach me and I said, no, thank you.
I have a story about that. So I was actually at an INAT mothing gathering and I had a friend who was like, oh, I know how to pick up a scorpion. I can show you. And he went down to grab it by the tail and immediately got stung by it. So we all just kind of laughed at him. We're like, yeah, that was good. So I just don't pick them up. Or again, if they walk on me, they're just walking on me. Just be one with the substrate.
Oh, you left out the part where Sam had just taught him how. So it was Sam's fault, right?
So, oh, some of you were there then. Okay.
Let's have this next question be the last question. And if you know the answer to this, then I am in awe. Do spiders make sounds?
Yeah, so some of them can make noises. There's actually been studies of some of the jumping spiders mating. And they'll put them on little things and feel the vibration. So some of them do make vibrations in different waves. So it's not going to be loud. You're not going to be able to hear it or anything up close, probably. There's always that joke about farting spiders too. But yeah, no.
Thank you so much, Megan. This was wonderful. We really
My pleasure.
appreciate it.
If y'all ever want me to do a spider walk, let me know.
Are there any announcements?
When and where?
You guys let me know. We'll go to a party
Okay.
to find spiders.
Well, it looks like there's no announcements. I'm gonna check chat. Still getting some thank yous. Don't football teams should be named spiders. Thank you. All right, well, thank you, Megan, very much.
Sharon, on the poll, 90% participation. Yes. No's 0.
All right, thank you. Then we are still Texas Master Naturalist chapter. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I don't know if anyone has got some tickets for. Okay, so you guys that are here by Zoom, and for those of you who are here, next month we have a young lady. I'm not sure if she's in college yet or not. I think I've heard her presentation. She did a research project about microplastics. So it's very interesting. And yes, you have them in your body. Also, this is jumping way ahead, but in September, we've scheduled Amy Martin to come back. Her book is supposed to finally be out at the end of August. And so she will be here at our September meeting, and she's also going to schedule a walk at a hike at the nature center. And so we'll get that information out to you. But thank you guys who are here by Zoom, and let's sell some more tickets. Have some refreshments, please.